I like our titles so far.
We got some good ones. Yeah.
I like Clam AV Maybe because it just sounds funny.
Yep.
Clam AV Maybe.
Yeah.
Pass-Ackward. I used to say Pass-Ackward a lot.
Yep.
And Pass-Ackward, come on.
It's good. Yeah.
Come on. And Hipster Passwords.
Hipster Passwords.
It's the new wave, guys. You just have to get hip with it. You gotta, I don't know why you're not using 600 character passwords yet. That's your own fault.
Yeah, indeed. You can memorize that, can't you?
It's a personal failing, I'd say. Yeah, if you can't memorize that, what are you doing on the internet, you know?
Speaking of the internet, I see you downloaded the whole thing.
Apparently, I have been informed that there's a good chunk of Wikipedia in
there's a lot in that thing.
Image. 18 gigs, dude.
Coming up in this episode, Plasma's kind of hot right now. Brush your passwords. Browser watch. A little feedback and a little focus. Hello and welcome to Linux User Space. I'm Dan.
And I'm Leo.
Hey, Leo. I don't know if you got a chance or not to check out, some of the recent KDE Akademy videos and whatnot, so you could get a hint of, how the plasma sausage is made. They were good.
They are. There's specifically one, I think I mentioned it a couple episodes ago about the What's This Wayland Anyway, That video from Akademy. And it does explain how the relationship between KDE Plasma and Wayland and what's in the future.
Right.
But if you ask me to tell you what Wayland is, I got nothing other than, Dan, you're going to say it, aren't you?
It's a protocol.
It's a protocol. Hey, you know what? You know what Wayland is? It's a protocol. That's what it is. Just a protocol.
That explains it very well, doesn't it? Yeah. Anyway, I'll have a link to that in the show notes. But in addition to that, Plasma 527 got released.
Before we dive into that, I just want to make a mention.
Yeah.
You do need to go watch these videos because they have, get this, an Akademy Awards.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that. You're right. Yeah. Academy Awards.
There's an Academy Awards, man. It's bigger. It's bigger than the other Academy Awards you might be thinking of, for sure. But
it's bigger in our circle anyway, so that's all that matters. And they're great people. I love them all. And what they produce, and what they produced was 5.27 plasma.
Ooh. And that's the worst one?
No, it's the best one. It's the last one. It's the last one in the 5 series. So
yes,
anything from here on out is going to be part of the Plasma 6.
And that means that it's based on Qt6 or Qt6, right?
The next one will be Qt6.
I know neither of us dug into this, but I am just kind of curious. Did we get over all of the Qt stuff where so the whole reason that we couldn't move to Qt6 was because there were going to be features of Qt6, at least early on, that were not going to be available to folks like Plasma who are on the open end of things, because Qt is not fully open. There's an enterprise.
I could be wrong about the version numbers here, since you're putting me on the spot.
On the spot.
I believe 6.1 is where the open, where it's available for open source.
Okay.
6.0 was not. So we got past that hurdle, and I don't even know what version we're on off the top of my head here, but we can now have it available for all the open source folks.
Well, that's cool. That's great. That so that would explain why the move to 5 or to 6
can happen. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that makes me happy. I'm really kind of excited to see where 6 is going to take us. if it's going to be huge, kind of like 3 to 4 was. Everybody hated it. And then 4 to 5, I think everybody hated it at the beginning. And then I think we all kind of, no, it's a good one. It's a good one. So I'm curious to see, is 6 like Windows and everybody's going to hate it?
I hope not. Well, and I'll say they really put a lot of polish on this last version of Plasma 5.
They did.
They tidied up a lot of things.
I suppose that's because it's going to be around for a while.
Yeah, that's the anticipation, is it will be around for a while. It could be up to a year, they say, maybe, before we see another release. And that's atypical. Usually things are rolling out pretty quick, 6 months or so. But there's still some things that we all know that need work. And most notably, probably Wayland is the thing that just everybody's cranking on. Even every desktop environment is working on that because it's newish, and we're still trying to get the polishing touches to that.
Even XFCE, the notoriously slow desktop environment, has got a lot of work on Wayland already behind them. So,
yep.
Impressive.
LXQ, they're right there too. They're doing a bunch of stuff. There's a couple components that aren't quite Wayland native or have the ability yet. They're all working on it.
That's really cool. Well, Cinnamon is only kind of working on it. It's not going to be anytime
they're
soon.
Almost not.
And it certainly won't be in the next version.
No, it'll be a little bit out. I don't.
But more on this Plasma business, though.
It's really great. I've been enjoying it. I've got it on the Gecko the Gecko rolling install on my laptop. It's one of the systems I have there, and so I did the upgrade. Just about as fast as they released it, and it's pretty fantastic.
I saw somewhere on the web it took 3 hours. 3 hours from release to OpenSUSE Tumbleweed.
That's pretty quick.
That's insane speeds, man. That's really fast.
It is.
That's cool.
They weren't kidding around at all with that one. I gotta say, if you're looking to try out the latest Plasma, OpenSUSE Tumbleweed is kind of pretty good spot to be.
So what do we get new? What's amazing about this 5.27?
So one of the biggest features is the new tiling feature. Now, this is early days. I fully anticipate a lot more getting added to this. Be patient is what I'm going to say, because I think there's more coming for it. I know you're going to throw out Windows, Leo, because that's your favorite desktop environment, but it's not quite that. It's not super discoverable. So you might want to dig into it a little bit, but you can set it up like any tiling window manager looks like. Not the same functionality because you don't have the shortcut keys or the hotkeys or whatever, but you can have the master stack layout kind of thing, and you can split those. You can customize the layout, although it doesn't remember that, if you will.
You can put them together however you want to, but if you go back to one of the original default layouts, you got to do it all over again if you want it to go back that way. And that's kind of annoying. But yeah, as Dan said, I'm pretty sure there's no way that would just be left to languish like that. I suppose there will be a save your layout button to add it to the defaults coming soon. But yeah, and it is hard to discover, and that was the thing that kind of got me. And this is exactly why I'm going to throw out the Windows thing, because Windows's situation is also hard to discover, but there will be a time, I guarantee it, where you hover over the maximize button for just a little too long, and then the types of tiling will just kind of pop out from there. In Windows 11, assuming you're on a newer version of Windows 11 where they added the cool extra tiling modes.
Yes.
I gotta believe Plasma's gonna catch up.
Oh yeah,
pretty quickly.
No. I think they will. I think they'll take those things and they'll add on to it. Hey, we got to start somewhere, right? I mean, and this is a really good start. None of that stuff was. I mean, other than you could slide your window over to the left or up to the top or whatever to get the quarter tiling and all of that jazz. other than those things, you didn't really have an option. Like you could just do the half tiling, and that was what you had.
Right.
So,
and that's still kind of how it is in Cinnamon, I think. You just get the half tiling.
That way in a lot of places, but this is a much better setup, I feel, and like you can adjust that. Like it's not just a half a page. If you wanted, to slide that one tile over a little bit, so it was only like a third, and the other one was 2/3, you can do that, which is kind of nice.
Yeah, I did. I saw. So you sent me a screenshot. We were talking kind of about the difference between Windows and Plasma and how they handle that.
Yeah, and it looks similar.
Quarter tiling is super easy. Half tiling is super easy. It looks like you have this like the middle window is larger, and then two small slivers on both left and right. And then there's on the left hand there's 2 tiles top and bottom, and then a big tile filling up the rest of the screen on the right. So for three total tiles. I think the defaults are pretty good. I think they cover a lot of use case.
They do.
But yeah, I don't know. Those custom ones, those are the ones that are going to get you.
Yeah. And like I said, like you can slide those little, the rails left and right or up and down or whatever, and adjust those a little bigger, a little smaller too, depending on what you're doing. So I don't know.
And it works pretty
nice.
well.
I think that's nice.
As you're adjusting the size of the windows or whatever, the tiling back and forth, up and down. That's actually quite slick, and that works very well.
The other things I'll mention here, improved Wayland support, obviously.
Gotta love that.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about. And so that's a lot better.
I think one of the improvements to Wayland is that the fractional scaling isn't a hack anymore. Where
this one's for you.
It had to like upscale and then downscale to get it right. This caused your CPU to work overtime to kind of render all of that and do all of that. So this is not only good for clarity, it is also good for your battery life. So that's really awesome. But I didn't look into it far enough because I have this situation now where I've got a framework laptop at a higher DPI screen and a 1080p screen next to it, and I'm trying to find a Linux distro that works very well, or at least a Linux desktop that works very well with that. Wayland in Plasma does look promising, but I'm not sure yet. I'm playing around with Elementary OS right now because I said I would months ago before just saying, back to Mint. So, and their Mint and Elementary are both on X, so the solutions here aren't really going to work out for me. I mean, X just flat doesn't do mixed DPI. So like I can't have some kind of bigger text on one, smaller text on another, or different scaling on one and another. It's just not going to do it. But Mint has this X render hack that's built in that'll kind of do it for you, but it's pretty much unusable. Anytime I put anything on the framework screen, it looks like screen tearing. It's not.
Like rasterization or something,
like parts of the windows just blank out.
Ugh.
Like they're invisible. Like so it kind of looks like tearing, but it isn't.
Yeah, I get you. Oof.
But I ended up talking to Cassidy James on the Elementary subreddit, and he gave me a couple of different ways to work around the issue. Still X-render weirdness, but it seems to be a better way to do it, which is essentially just do the scaling manually with the resolution, which I'm in the process of trying. I haven't gotten that done yet. But I suppose probably by next episode or so, I should have something to report on that. But anyway, so I'm hoping with these Wayland improvements in Plasma that I can, if Elementary doesn't work out and I'm not ready to go back to Mint yet, I can try Plasma again.
Yeah.
And on 5.27 and see.
Well, it is going to be around, so.
Yeah, exactly. So I've got time. I've got time to test it out, but I'm looking at it for sure. For that reason.
Yeah, one of the other things that really has gotten a ton of heat in the past.
Forever.
I think since the beginning of time, maybe.
Yesterday as well.
Discover. No joke. Everybody hates on it. Loves to hate on it. But it's really kind of good now. I'm not kidding. I'm not just saying that. I think they've improved the look of it. Like, so the UI is like way better than it was. It's not nearly as I'll say disorganized, if you will. You don't have to click quite so much to find your things, and it puts all the apps kind of in a nice little set of smaller cards all on the same page.
Yeah.
I think it's a good improvement, and I don't know, maybe people won't hate on it as much.
I don't know. No, that won't
They
change.
will?
What's funny is I've had issues. I feel like on par, maybe not, but I've had issues with GNOME software.
Oh yeah, GNOME software's got a huge bunch of heap problems too. Like, I don't even know.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I've had issues with Elementary's App Center. The only software thingy that I've not had issues with really is like I guess it's because it's a separate piece, is Mint's software updater. When the thing opens, it updates software and it closes, and that's all there is to it. I don't use the software installer much on any distro.
Well, I'll continue on. Discover might be the best then. Yeah, fight me.
Ooh.
Anyway, no, seriously, searching has improved a ton too. Like, so that's the main key of why you'd want to use one of these things is the discoverability of software, right?
Yes.
Discover is in the name. But like finding the application that fits your needs best. And I think searching has improved a ton. So the main purpose behind the application has really improved. And
right,
I think having the back end tie-in things that are really coming to their own as well. I know GNOME software kind of does a pretty good job of like tying in the Flatpak stuff in the back end and the Snap stuff, obviously. Now Discover is doing the same stuff, I think, pretty good, maybe even on par. And it's giving you like, I know here in my Kubuntu install, it gives me notifications saying, hey, you got some updates you can go do. And if they're Flatpaks, it will update those as well. And that's pretty nice having all of that stuff in one place. Because it'll search out all of your FlatHub repos or Flatpak repos, FlatHub or whatever else you have. If you have other Flatpak repos, and it'll search out the Snap, store and whatever your package manager of choice is. It'll search all of those things natively, which is nice.
Now we're going to get the DistroBox integration, and then we'll be able to do that too.
Yeah, maybe.
Man,
yeah.
That'll be the day where we don't have distros anymore, right?
Yeah, because then you could search the AUR, right? Like, right. Any distro, search the AUR.
What else could you need?
I don't know, but it's improved, and I hope people don't hate on it quite so much because it has improved. Try it again.
Yeah.
If you don't use, that sort of thing, well then, yeah, I don't know what to tell you. It's not gonna magically make it better for you.
Console works very well.
It does.
So you can just install your software that way if that's your bag, man.
If that's your thing, it's not going to improve that. Sorry, but like if you're looking for something that is along those lines, it's pretty good. Even better than that, we're going to top that one. KRunner. That might very well be the best application launcher, but it's more than that. It's
I don't know. I'll fight you on that one.
Yeah, all right, you're on, buddy. Because it's more than an application launcher. It's a search tool. It's a oh my goodness,
calculator.
It does calculation, but it does time zone calculations. Like if I want to know what time it is in Europe right now, I just type it in there and it figures it out for me.
So many times do I have to do a conversion to UTC. And I know sometimes it's 6 hours and sometimes it's 5 hours from where I'm at, but I never know which it is. And I always get the time wrong. And so I'm always like an hour early or an hour late to something.
Yep.
So, this type of thing is just nice and fancy. And I don't have to go to a website to do it. See, there was a push to move everything to the web. All these little applications out on the web and doing all this stuff, and then you have things like KRunner pulling you back out because if you care about your privacy, the less websites you go to steal your data and your cookies and stuff, the better off you're going to be. And so what I'm trying to say is KRunner is a security solution.
Yeah, that's a good
as well as a search tool and everything else. Because if you can do what you need to do inside of a little run app on your desktop, then you're already in good shape. You're going to the web less. less. I think it's a good thing, a security win, if you will.
Absolutely. It searches your local system, type stuff first. And then if it doesn't find what it likes there, it'll go out and search, other things. So it will give you web suggestions if that's the better choice.
Yeah.
But it ranks it all. So
as opposed to Windows, which will search Bing first.
Of
and
course.
then eventually decide to show you the applications that are installed.
Yes. It'll search the Windows Store first and then maybe come back to something you have locally.
And sometimes, maybe is right. Sometimes it's like, what? I don't have an Audacity. I don't know how to pronounce that. And then you try to search again later on. It's like, oh yeah, Audacity. I know what you're talking about. You're like, what do you mean, dude? It was there the whole time.
It was.
Local search, far superior.
Anyway, KRunner, great tool. Probably one of the best. It's certainly the best that comes integrated in any of the desktop environments. And that's without a doubt.
Yep. And so I said at the beginning of this that I would fight you on which one's better here, because over the past couple of months I have fallen in love with Albert. And you know what Albert will do? Time zone. And it'll do the cool fancy new KRunner clipboard fanciness that is going on. Like if you do a search term in KRunner and it gives you like, here's the definition of that word, you can copy that directly to Albert can do that too. And it's really cool because as you're setting up Albert, you can decide.
Yep.
Like you are forced to decide, and I think this is the best way to do it. Forced to decide whether or not you want web results within Albert. So if you search for something, it doesn't find anything locally. Will you allow it to go to the web? It is a conscious choice that you had to make to turn on the plugin that handles that
nice.
feature. Yeah, it is really nice. So I think what's going to happen is me and Dan are going to have to do a head-to-head, Albert versus KRunner.
Okay.
Who is the winner?
Showdown.
Yeah, exactly. The runner showdown. Are we ready?
There it is.
That's going to be fun.
So another cool thing is the widgets and tooltips saw some improvements, and I'm talking about some of those things down there in your panel. So if you hover over those things, they give you a little more descriptive information, and like a lot of the time, you can do a middle click, and they would give you another function sometimes.
Mute your audio. Mute your microphone. That kind of thing.
Right. So now the little tooltip tells you what happens on a middle click action, and I think that's pretty cool.
Oh, it is. Oh, it absolutely is. I mean, I don't know. Tooltips are kind of half in, half out. Like there's a lot of information. Most people ignore them, but if you pay attention, it's going to tell you. At least now in Plasma, it's going to tell you a whole lot more about what you're about to do.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, here you are clicking around. You're right clicking, you're left clicking, you're clicking all over the place, double clicking. Yeah, you don't need to do all that. It tells you what it's going to do when you hover over it, and I think
don't accidentally mute your mic on the fly. Read the little tooltip; it'll tell you it's what it's about to do.
Exactly. So pretty good stuff. I like those a lot, and so I'm going to point you to a couple of links. One of them is to Nick at the Linux Experiment. He did a much better job explaining all of the improvements than I just did. So please go check that out. And then Linux Action News, they talked about the new Plasma as well. So I think go check them out too.
Lots of ways to learn about all the new hype that you should try yourself. Well, if you haven't ran over to YouTube and hit the subscribe button because you're watching us together. Oh wait. I still don't know. I'll figure out the directions one of these days. Anyway, if you're watching us on YouTube or you're watching us on TILvids, make sure you hit that subscribe before you go anywhere. Make sure you go do that. Hit the little thumbs up. Hey, that thing too. That's pretty cool. And of course, if you like these shows, you want them to continue, you want to support us, there's Patreon. So linuxuserbase.show/Patreon/TILvids/YouTube. Take your pick. /malware. It exists.
Yeah, it does.
You can go to any of those three, find us, subscribe to us, throw us $1 or whatever you think is fair, and we'll keep trucking out this content for you.
Off the heels of the LastPass breach by an employee, we learned some pretty damning things. Not all password vaults were encrypted the same. Some were so weak, it took minutes to crack them, regardless of what your master password was. This flew in the face of LastPass assurance that a strong master password means you're safe. It didn't, and it doesn't in this particular case. To top it off, the secure notes weren't so secure after all, leading to anything written in them to be discoverable without much work. This also included files stored within the vault. You know, your driver's license, passports, I don't know, whatever, credit cards, whatever you had in there, I don't know.
Yeah, stuff you thought was going to be secure.
So, what's worse, the vaults themselves had even more unencrypted information. A running log of who is logging in, where they're logging in from, when the last login occurred.
Metadata? Who needs metadata?
Oh boy.
This was pretty egregious, man.
Yeah.
It was essentially the cipher that they used to encrypt all the stuff was so bad that you could just poke through it.
Yeah.
Yeah. You just end around the password, essentially, is what ended up happening. Yeah, I think we tend to fall on the Warden side of things.
We do.
We use both Bit and Vaultwarden. Yeah, we talked about them. I think we talked about some of the password stuff in episode 11. We talked about a little bit of the history of Pass. But yeah, kind of turns out we're not done talking about these password things.
Yeah, we're going to take a few more minutes to talk about that.
Yeah, good hygiene. Good hygiene. This is we got to brush our passwords. That's the deal. And just to kind of be full and complete, the LastPass breach happened in about the end of November. At least that's when it was publicly disclosed. Right. Turned out that it was an internal employee that was kind of trying to do this reverse end-around blackmail of LastPass to get some cash. Ended up getting caught. And then obviously we learned a whole lot more about the breach in general. And none of it was good. Yeah, and so it turned out that like long-time customers, like really long, like originally long-time customers of LastPass were the most at risk because they had the encryption they used. It wasn't CBC, it was the other one. It was the older one, but they used only one iteration of it instead of I think it was like 20,000 is the default now. But I mean, you could crank that up to 1 million if you wanted to, and it just adds when you're generating passwords or you're adding stuff to your vault. It just takes a few more seconds. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's all CPU based. So the faster your CPU is, the faster that happens. And our phones are so fast now that you wouldn't notice but a 2-second or so delay.
Which isn't that much.
Hundreds of thousands of more iterations to strengthen your password vault. But yeah, so if you never changed that piece of information from the very beginning, it was still one iteration of the lesser secure encryption, which is what was so easy to get to. But what was so egregious about it was that the secure note stuff were not secure, were not even encrypted. The metadata, that's what Dan listed off, who's logging in, where they're logging in from, that stuff is in clear text. All you have to do is parse the actual vault itself and the information sitting out there unencrypted. So it was not great.
No, that's pretty bad as far as they go. But
as kind of we heard the last of that, Dan and I were talking, maybe we should talk a little bit more about some passwords.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's important. It doesn't matter what operating system you're running or what thing you're logging into. Having a good password is pretty key to keeping it secure, and that's it's just paramount. I don't know what else to say. I mean, you need to do that. You need to keep track of your stuff, and you need to keep it probably the best you can with what you have to work with.
Right. And I think a lot of times we talk about two-factor, but one of those factors is a password.
That's where you start. That's where it all starts.
Right. And sometimes there are situations where you cannot have a second factor. So I think that's kind of what we're going to focus on. We're going to focus on good password hygiene in general. So where you have to have a password, wherever that may be.
Your first round of defense.
Right.
So interestingly, Mozilla published a blog post recently talking about this very thing, password hygiene, right? And they really called it out. They said, so many folks use baby names as their password. And
why?
Just, like they did an analysis, and it was like amazing that people are just they're just using their kids' names as passwords, and that's really not all that great. That's not unique enough. I feel like.
Yeah, well, the original recommendation was to, make a memorable password, right? I mean, make it, add a few characters, maybe throw an asterisk in there or whatever, but make it memorable. So what people ended up doing was, well, what's the most memorable thing that you've got? Well, I've got a kid. Yeah. I'll never forget about the kid. So I'm gonna put my password the kid, and then add 1 to it. Like, call it a day, man. His name was Joshua, which is, by the way, the #1 top spot in Mozilla's pitch here. Joshua 1. What is that? JOSHUA1. Add another 1. You got your 8 characters right there. You got numbers, you got letters, and you're probably pretty good. Heck, throw an exclamation point at the end of it. You got 9 characters.
A special one.
Yep, and you've defeated pretty much most places password requirement, and you've still done the big no of don't use names. Names are in the word lists, the dictionaries that people will use to just chew through, and we're talking millions of passwords, millions if not more per second. If they've got the database that we have heard so many times, there was a breach and the database of passwords has been lifted. And now, you'll find it on the dark web for about $5, right?
Right.
And then you can just run your software. Like Hashcat is insanely fast if you've got an NVIDIA GPU, or just any GPU really. Hashcat will just rip through those databases so fast that that low-hanging fruit, Joshua 1 exclamation point. Yeah, I'm sorry. You're done in the first hour. Yeah, in the first hour. You're one of a few thousand that that now we know your password. So, yeah, bad. Don't use names.
Yeah. Those rainbow tables, they come in handy for those crackers. And so even the hipster names are probably verboten. They probably shouldn't use those either, because
like Elon's kid, AEX1. I think actually his baby name may be the only one.
All right, that's pretty random. That's almost like you ran that through the random password generator, and that's what the name you came out with, huh?
You know what? I think we figured him out. That's how he named his kid, right there.
Yeah, try to avoid that. Right.
At the end of this, I will pitch you an idea of how you can use it.
Okay.
Stay tuned.
I'm hoping you're going to string some things together, not just stick
You're
to
giving
that.
my secrets away. You're
Okay.
giving my secrets away, Dan.
Didn't mean to do that. Anyway, I recently, on the same topic, not a few days ago, I got an email from Linode Akamai about updates they're making to their user and root password requirements. So this is like when you set up your Linode, it lets you set a root password. So requirements that they're going to be introducing. So it's, hello, as part of our commitment to providing safe and secure platform, Akamai regularly introduces security enhancements in order to better protect our platform and our customers.
Standard boilerplate.
It is. But they go on and they say, the new minimum character length is 11. And here are some suggested ways of meeting the password strength score requirement.
I got it. Joshua 135 246 exclamation point. Done. Thanks, Akamai. I've got a secure password now, baby.
Well,
They're going to stop me from that? I wonder if they would stop me.
They probably
from
wouldn't. That might be enough, but I bet it doesn't score great. Like like some of those things, they do have the little score meters on them. They'll go from red to yellow to green, depending on how complicated and strong your password is. And it's subjective, I guess, to some degree. But I think obviously you want to get more complicated and get on that green end of things rather than down on the red end of things. So
yeah. Well, slowly but surely, Linux has told me the password that I use for my testing boxes, slowly but surely, because it is a complex one and it is fairly long. Slowly but surely, it's gone from like green to yellow to now. Some distros are even like,
red.
No, stop using that.
So Linode says, avoid using simple passwords based on dictionary words. So like penguin 123, don't do that. Because that's in there. Use a mixture of unpredictable upper and lowercase letters, numbers, and symbols. So, maybe something random. If you can memorize something random, you actually probably have it made, really seriously.
Yeah.
Avoid repeats, like AAA, sequences, ABCD, and keyboard patterns, QWERTY, ASDF, stuff like that. Don't do that. Those are the things to avoid. These are their recommendations, and they aren't bad. I think it's a good starting place. Obviously, length. The more length you have, that really cuts down on the ability to crack that in a timely fashion.
Adding one character exponentially increases the difficulty of brute forcing a password. One character exponentially. This is why password managers suggest it, like on the low end, they're suggesting like 16, but you crank that all the way up to like 128 if you want to. Every single character, it is paramount.
Yeah.
Length is paramount.
Exactly. And so I've also got a link to a Brian Krebs article, blog post that he had. But this blog post itself, I think, was pretty good.
It's good.
It talks about some password do's and don'ts. It's similar to the suggestions that you get from Linode here. And so I really want you to go read that article. I think it was pretty good.
He's got a quote in here. Some of the easiest to remember passwords aren't words at all, but collections of words that form a phrase or sentence. Perhaps the opening sentence to your favorite novel or the opening line to a good joke. Think about that. Think about how long the first sentence of any novel is.
It's long.
I mean, obviously, assuming it's not 2 or 3 words or something like that, all right? But it's crazy long.
Yeah, it's a bunch of characters.
Would actually be kind of annoying to type, right? But that annoyance that you're dealing with to type something, exponential. So that's part of the solution I got for you.
Yeah. Well, ultimately, you can check your passwords if they've been exposed someplace. And so Have I Been Pwned is one place to go. So go, you can check your passwords. I'll have a link to that. And in addition, obviously, you can check your accounts too. That's a different section of the same webpage, but he has one just for passwords to see what's been leaked as far as a password. So, if you want to try your password in that thing, it'll tell you if it's been exposed somewhere, and you should never ever use that again.
Right. We're talking, it's not just like 1 million passwords that they're checking this against. There are 613 million passwords. And this was at the end of 2021. So I'm going to guess we're inching toward 1 billion at this point. And by the way, you can download it if you want.
You can do that, yes.
It's 17.2 gigabytes. You can download this thing.
Check
and
it
then
offline.
You can Yeah. If you're like, I don't want to put my password in some random website.
That's fine.
I mean,
don't have to.
Right?
Yep.
Download the 17 gig file, and then you can use something like John the Ripper to test that against your own passwords. You can do that.
Yep.
This is
it's a good
lot
thing.
Of passwords.
It's a good sanity check, I feel like. It's not a bad thing. The other thing you can do in like Bitwarden, Vaultwarden, I know we pitched that a couple times, but there are reports in there that you can run against your accounts. So you can check and see if they're exposed. You can check passwords to see if what you have that's been reused, and it'll check weak passwords as well. There's a whole report section. You go in there, and it'll run it against everything you have in Bitwarden or Vaultwarden, and it'll check those things for you. And again, another little sanity check so that you can know what you need to go update and change potentially based on what you're seeing there.
Or just let Bitwarden tell you what the password should be. Crank that up to like 32 characters, check all the boxes for all the little weird stuff, and then generate a password. But for the passwords that you cannot do that for, right? You can generate a password for those passwords that, there's no other way to get into this service, or, you need something in addition to the second factor.
Yeah.
But you still have to physically type it in.
Mm-hmm.
Remembering those crazy passwords is actually very difficult to do.
It can be.
But here's my solution. We've finally gotten to it. Here is my solution for this. Pick your favorite phrase, right? As Brian Krebs said, it can be the opening line to your favorite novel, your favorite poem, anything like that. It could be something somebody said in a movie. It doesn't really matter. But choose lots of words that mean something to you, but doesn't necessarily identify you, right? Like, so it shouldn't be like all of your kids' names.
Mm-hmm.
Or or all of the street names that you've lived on. Stuff.
Right.
If I can Google it about you, you should not.
Yeah, probably shouldn't be using those things. Yeah.
Right. Don't use that as your passphrase. So something that no one would really know about you, right? Your third most favorite book, right? No one would know. And then pick a line out of that and memorize that line. And then, so the easy way to do this is to take that line and type it in exactly as is. People forget about adding spaces. Spaces are a special character.
White space is a thing, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And, the same password with and without spaces hash out to two totally separate things.
Yeah, they do.
So there's no way to know spaces or no spaces, right?
Right.
So add the spaces. Every space adds another character, which exponentially increases the difficulty of trying to brute force this thing. So spaces, right? But people know about spaces. And if they suspect you've got a passphrase, I suppose the first thing that they're going to try to do is look for spaces in there. So instead of spaces, if you feel a little more security-minded, instead of spaces, use a different special character or a pattern of special characters to separate each word. Or add the spaces too and a special character.
Yeah.
We've gotten to the point now where this password is like 48 characters or 60 characters or 80 characters long now. But,
right.
But I mean, if you're trying to be the least low-hanging fruit, I think this is probably the easiest to remember way, because that's my goal here, is to help you make a password that is easy to remember, yet extremely strong. Passphrase with spaces, throw a couple of special characters in there, if not every space kind of thing, and you'll be good.
I'm going to argue a little bit here, Leo, and I'm going to say that even if it's kind of long, if you use it frequently for like something that's like a main account, you're going to use it a lot, right? You're going to type it in a lot. You can memorize this. And sometimes to get over the hump, I will say it's actually okay to write it down. It's okay to write it down. But do not carry it around. Don't leave it on your keyboard. Don't leave it in a place that's conspicuous.
Don't put it on a sticky note on your monitor.
No, not underneath the desk.
I've seen it.
I mean, put it in a locked place, please. Someplace that doesn't leave, a physical security place, right? That's okay.
I'll back you up on this. The most secure password manager is a notebook.
Mm-hmm.
In locked storage.
In locked storage. Yeah, no, I'll agree with that. Have a little lockbox or something. I mean, ultimately, a lot of those things, if you have like the two-factor authentication, you print off those codes or whatever that you can basically get back into your two-factor.
Those belong in that same lockbox.
Those go in there too. Yes,
Never
please.
take them out.
Right. No, but that's what that's for, right? And eventually you'll get yourself over the hump, especially the more times you go reaching for that safe.
Yeah.
You'll get yourself over the hump and you'll learn that difficult pass, phrase, code, whatever. And you'll get there. And ultimately, if you're using a password manager, you don't need it for everything. You need it for a few things. So,
Right. Yeah, these passwords are meant for not to be copy and pasted. Right. These are passwords for the situation where you are unable for some reason to use Bitwarden to get your password where it needs to go. This is the one that you just gotta remember. I mean, think about the master password for Bitwarden itself. You gotta type that one in.
Listen, I hear the guy out there saying, "What? There's a hardware keys for that." You're not wrong, but not everybody can afford something like that necessarily. And you still probably want to put a passcode on there too, so that like if something physically happens to their hardware key, you can still get access to your stuff. Like, I don't know. And so it needs to be difficult. We know that. And it needs to be physically secure. We know that too. So even if you're using a hardware key, you better have a backup plan. I'm just saying, because those things fail.
Exactly. And the backup plan should be really, 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 really good password. Yep. Well, all of these password topics, the LastPass thing, the everything else, you can catch them on the subreddit, reddit.com/r/Linux user space. Or you can get them on Discord, linuxuserspace.show/Discord. That's where all the news goes as we dig it up. Dan's been doing a really good job here lately of throwing all the news in there. So we got that. We got the news feed if you want that. A lot of that stuff just ends up being these shows. This is how we kind of build them. But there's also Mastodon and Telegram and Matrix and Twitch and Twitter. So however you interface with us, however you follow us, however you get in touch with us, however you leave your feedback, because that's important too. Find us on one of those places. Every place that I've said, linuxuserspace.show/the-thing, and you'll find us.
So, Leo, it's time for everyone's favorite segment, Browser Watch. Ooh, we did a whole episode on browser stuff like a couple ago.
Yeah, we're going to give you a break. We're going to give you a little break.
This will go quick, I promise.
It's going to be a small browser watch, but it's about more browsers. We stayed true to the promise that I made a couple episodes ago that we're going to include more browsers. It's not just going to be Mozilla Watch anymore. It's going to always be Browser Watch. A lot of them kind of turned out that way, but now I think there's a bit more of a focus on let's get a little bit about all the different stuff out there. Because not everybody uses Firefox, and not everybody uses Vivaldi, and to a lesser extent, Brave. So let's bring in a few more. Why not? We're
going to start right off the gate with GNOME Web. GNOME Web, they recently announced in the latest this week in GNOME that they got a new little UI thing for handling permissions stuff. And it's got a nice looking feel to it. I feel like.
It feels like GNOME is what it feels like.
It does. It's a good little addition. And GNOME Web's got some other things that are going for it too. So
I'm sorry, did you say Epiphany?
Jeez, you got me. I don't know. What are we calling this thing? I'm calling it GNOME Web because that's appropriate, I feel like.
I think user facing it's GNOME Web. I think in all the like announcements it's always GNOME Web, but every time I install it, this is what gets me.
Yeah, the package is Epiphany.
Every time I install it, it says, "Oh, you're talking about Epiphany." And I'm like, "No. I'm talking about GNOME Web." And they're like, "Okay, so we'll install Epiphany then." And I'm like, "No. I mean GNOME." And so anyway, so we install Epiphany.
Yeah. Yeah, we did.
And then somehow I have Gnome Web.
I don't know. We pitched it a couple of episodes ago in 315. So, you can check that out for more. But I will say, as built-in browsers go, this one is pretty good. It's kind of towards the top. Like, other operating systems, other desktop environments, I don't know. Do they do it this well? That's a good question.
I'm still running it through its paces. I had some issues with
there's some
Nextcloud.
Things it doesn't do. Yeah.
Getting files into Nextcloud, like at all, is a hump that I think somehow it's going to have to get over. I don't know.
I'm going to try.
I don't know what's wrong. Like, I've dragged and dropped a file and then done it manually, where it's like file picker and everything.
Right.
And then I forget what it's called, but it's like no file.
Oh.
It uploads an empty file called like no file or something. I'll put a screenshot up here of it or something. But yeah, and then it's not the file that I wanted, which is weird. But anyway, everything else. I mean, the JavaScript rendering is so much faster, and just the general quality of life of Gnome Web is actually a whole lot faster.
Scrolling is fantastic.
Ooh, getting better every time.
So the other thing, in version 110 of Firefox, came the addition to import bookmarks, passwords, history from Opera GX, and Vivaldi. So prior to this release, it was only possible from Edge, Chrome, and Safari. So this really rounds out the ability to import things into Firefox. If you're coming from somewhere else and you want to give it a try, you can get all your stuff in there.
Well, that's kind of been the pain point for people that I have slightly convinced. They're already using Vivaldi, and I slightly convinced them because multi-account containers are amazing, and they wanted to try Firefox. A little rough. Rough trying to go from Vivaldi to Firefox when you got like a gajillion bookmarks and stuff. Yeah, but now, Firefox 110, it'll handle it now. So if you've been on the edge, if you're like, well, I use Vivaldi and there's no way to import all this stuff into Firefox, well, I got you now.
Yep.
Now you can try it. You can try Firefox. I dare you.
But
I dare you.
Speaking of Vivaldi's made improvements to their window panel.
I don't use Vivaldi enough. I had to look up what this thing
window panel
was, right? And so apparently it is, if you're one of those weirdos that has like 7,000 tabs open.
Yeah, well, oh boy. I will say, even I had that many tabs open on the last episode.
I just can't wrap my head around it. I cannot wrap my head around like how you keep it together. Well, let me tell you what. So Vivaldi is the only browser that I know of that will actually allow you to make sense of it. So having this many tabs open is not weird in Vivaldi, because in Vivaldi, you always had this thing called the Windows panel.
Right.
And you could slide it out and search through your tabs. This was actually the thing that really upset me about having multiple tabs open, is that eventually they got so small you couldn't read them.
Yeah.
So you just had to go off of icon only, and God forbid you had 4 of the same icon open. You have to click through all of them to figure it out.
You could do crazy things like stack them. That's another way to do it. And they could stack them by domain and all of that stuff. So that does kind of handle some of that other stuff for you. But this, like Leo is saying, really helps you do a searching on that if you need to get into it.
Exactly.
So before we get too far, I will say, this used to be called the Window Panel, and now they've actually renamed it to Windows Panel, and hopefully Microsoft doesn't sue them. But it's not just for the current window; it's for all the windows.
Right, exactly, and that's okay. So this is why it makes it cool, cooler, is that if you have 2 Vivaldis, and you had a billion tabs on one and a billion tabs on the other, that window panel would only search the active window.
Right.
Now it'll search across both, or 3 or 4, or depends on how masochistic you are, right? How many windows and tabs you have open. The Windows panel will search all of it and just pop you over to whichever Vivaldi it is that tab lives on. So if you're using Vivaldi and have about a gajillion tabs open, you're cool. You're fine.
It's all good.
now.
They got you covered.
Because you can sort them. I can't wrap my head around how you going to do that in Chrome. You're not.
Yeah, you're not.
Just
No.
Good luck.
So
the last one that we got.
Yep.
Is Microsoft Edge. It adds Adobe Acrobat to the browser itself. So the rendering engine of Adobe Acrobat is now part of Microsoft Edge. So no longer will you have to, on a fresh Windows install, go and get the Adobe Reader. Nobody wanted the Adobe Reader. What they went to the website for, they got the Adobe Reader. I mean, that's great and all. They wanted the McAfee antivirus. That's what they wanted. And yeah, so now it's part of your favorite Houdini-based browser, Edge. Great.
Okay, then.
So fantastic. I think generally, though, it is a bit of a good change because Adobe Acrobat supports a few more things like signing and like encrypted PDFs and stuff like that. So,
yeah. I mean, like we talked about this a bit ago, like Firefox upped their game a little bit, too.
Yes. So all the links that we've been talking about, all the news stories, all the links to the different various Reddits and all that kind of thing, you can always find that at linuxuserspace.show. You can also send us messages directly from the website if you're not much of an email fan. But if you are an email fan, you got that email baked into the Vivaldi or whatever, contact at linuxuserspace.show.
All right. Speaking of the feedback and the emails that came in, we got a few of them. And we got more than a few on this one. And we talked about it last time, but yeah, we had a handful of folks around the web.
We had a couple more.
I know. We're flame bait, I guess. Whatever. I mean, if that's what you got to do, no problem. So a few folks definitely wanted to point out that the text editor ED is indeed pronounced ED.
Got it. Ed. Oh, wait, no, I mean ED.
Oh, man.
Got it.
Jeez, Leo.
Ruined it again. Ruined it again. We know.
They're gonna mail us pitchforks in the mail here.
I get on fire. Like we took the liberty, just for those that don't know, we took the liberty of renaming it in the history section of Ed. I'm sorry. We took the liberty of renaming ED to Ed when we did the history on it. And then we kind of continued that joke on into the Vim history, but we released those two histories separately, obviously. And so it's our fault for splitting up the joke.
Yeah. I guess, I don't know. The English language is a tough one. I don't know. I only know one language, and I guess I don't have that one mastered, so apologies.
But between us both, we're like 50. I'm 50% good on English. You're 50% good on English. Together, I think we're still like 50% good on English.
Yeah,
so,
probably.
Cut us some slack.
All right. So an anonymous listener says, I saw OwnCloud 2.0.0. Infinite Scale has been released to stable. A rewrite of it in Go. Go, I like that. That's cool.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not familiar with the personal cloud servers, but I like the simple Go single binary applications. Could it be something for the show? And, I'm going to check this out. Like, I don't know. Like, we both use Nextcloud.
Yeah.
You have my interest peaked. Yeah, so I'm going to try this. Like, I feel like this is going to be something that I'm going to spin up and I'm going to give it a whirl. And I'm not necessarily wed to anything if something else comes along that's good.
Hey, man, my data is in. It's directly accessible, so I don't care. I'll check it into anything. We'll see.
Exactly. Yeah. So, thanks for the tip.
So Daniel M says, talking about Podman, I personally run it on Fedora server. You would, you red hatter, you. Or blue hat, I guess, Fedora, right? I found out there is a command that converts a running container to a systemd service. There's another command to be able to run systemd services for a user without having to log in. I have a document how I use it at, and we'll have the link in the show notes. Another topic I would like to bring up is the use of GPG and PGP. I've created a key pair and uploaded my public key to keys.openpgp.org. It can be searched using those the email address. I've been using KGPG for the desktop and Open Keychain on Android. If you haven't talked about encrypting and or signing using GPG keys, then I recommend looking into it.
That's a good idea. We should do. I feel like that's something we could touch on for a future episode.
We how many times do we talk about checking the outputted hash of whatever you download, whatever ISO you downloaded, and matching it to the thing that's on the website? This is that, but for everything else.
Yeah, and so you can verify digital signatures from people you want to get stuff from or send things to, and you can pull their public keys down. Yeah, we could totally do a little blurb on that stuff, I feel like.
Exactly.
And so I'll talk about my favorite a way to do that, and yeah. So he talks about a couple of applications that they're running. I've got one that does a lot of that stuff all together. So stay tuned. Frank W. says, "Great show, folks. Been listening for a long time. Thanks for the discussion of browsers in 3.15. It convinced me to try Brave again after being away from it for a couple of years. Yeah, I can't believe how much it has improved. It really has. It's been
a lot.
Good improvement. Within hours, it became my default browser on all of my devices. Only my T460 still has Chrome installed because my wife refuses to use anything else. Yeah, it's...
I start to wonder, is there a Chrome theme for Brave?
I don't know. That's a good question. Yeah, maybe you could trick her a little bit. Yeah.
Don't do that. Happy wife.
I know what that's like. You need to meet the wife approval factor. Yeah, it's really important. I get it. And he says, he finishes it out. Cheer from the Great White North. Eh? Thanks. I'm close to the Great White North, not quite. And I'm on the eastern side, not on the western side, for whatever that's worth.
I'm too far down south. I get to y'all all I want though. I'm so glad Brave is working out for you. I'm starting to readopt Brave on Linux from being on Firefox for so long. Multi-account containers is amazing. But since Chromium added the better scrolling and Brave adopted that just by taking in the new Chromium, it's so much better. It's so much better. And yep, it is right there next to Firefox. If I could get a multi-account containers on Brave, man, it would have to be a fight to the death between the two. I don't know what I would choose.
Yeah.
It's hard.
I don't know. Some time ago, Leo, you had given me the challenge of trying Firefox again on my mobile device, and I did that, and I have not strayed since then. I mean, I forget how long ago that was now. I'm still... I have Vivaldi on my phone as well, but I have Firefox as my default.
I love it.
So
I love it.
But along with that, I installed uBlock Origin, obviously, because that's pretty great, and that's really helped my browsing experience on the phone.
Oh yes. Oh, I mean, you save so much bandwidth and time just by blocking the.
And man, I don't know why I didn't think to do that. I always do it on the desktop, but I didn't think to add an extension to my browser on my phone. That is one of the things. Like Vivaldi obviously does some of that stuff built in. Brave does that too. So like I don't add it to those browsers. And maybe that's why I didn't think to add it. I don't know.
Well, on iOS you're kind of stuck. You have to just use whatever you get, and it still uses the Safari rendering engine. However, there are rumors, and by rumors I mean they're coming from the source. So
yeah, I saw that too.
iOS may be seeing a Brave and a Firefox that does not use Safari as the web rendering engine. Oh, I'm so excited.
That would be
because
good.
That might mean I could have uBlock Origin on Firefox, and the day that happens, if it's Brave, I don't care. I don't care. The day it happens, I'm doing it.
Last bit of feedback here. Eric M on YouTube says, "You mentioned the workstation use case. there was a recent bunch of improvements made to Fedora CentOS RHEL for HDR color in 4K displays. Red Hat mentioned they did this because Pixar and other animation studios use RHEL for their workstations. Yeah, and in addition, the video editing software and stuff that you can install, it works very well out of the box too. Those are the recommended places they tell you to install those, like DaVinci and stuff like that.
Oh yeah, they're like use CentOS or
CentOS.
Red Hat.
Yeah, they do. They tell you that. Yes, they tell you to use Red Hat. So that is the place to put it, and so that's a really good use case for that.
Yep.
Number 2, he says, in Podman, the pod comes from Kubernetes. A pod is a group of containers that are in the same namespace. So where you do a Docker compose, you do a pod. And if you're just running a container, it's just a container, whether that's Docker or Podman. So thanks for the clarification on that.
It made so much sense.
It does.
I read it and I was like, get out of here, really?
Yep.
And then I mean, trust but verify, right? I went and that really, seriously, the language is like that.
Mm-hmm.
That is quite literally the language of Podman. So, that's so cool. I felt so dumb. But then so smart after I just added that to the old knowledge bank.
Exactly.
But pod manager, manage pods. Pods are multiple containers in a. I get it. Thanks, Eric.
So, real treat here on the community focus. You ready to focus? I'm ready to focus.
Focus.
So for this focus, we got the Vashinator.
Oh.
So Michael Vash's YouTube channel is a great Linux resource. He really walks you through a bunch of stuff. So he recently did a Nix video where he dubbed it, 0 to Nix. And it was, and it's a great resource. I know Nix is got some great popularity. It was popular when we looked at it some episodes ago. And I know like the Jupiter guys, they're really pitching it often as well. And Martin Wimpress is now too. So,
oh yeah, Nix plus Pantheon, I think was the last thing he said.
Yeah,
which is hey man, I'm on elementary. I'm trying out that Pantheon, and it's pretty slick, man. It's pretty slick. And it turns out Danielle Ferre has been giving a thumbs up over to the Nix packagers over there because they've been helping her figure out a whole heck of a lot of bugs in Pantheon. So double thanks to Nix for helping out with that development because I'm getting to enjoy it.
Well, nice. The cool thing about Nix is you got the flakes. So that helps you get the development stuff.
No, I washed my hair.
Oh,
no, I don't.
Okay.
I don't have any. Not right now. Oh, not those flakes. Different flakes.
The other flakes. Anyway, back to it. Michael, he's also got a bunch of other guided adventures that are great for anyone at any skill level. And even more recently, he's been diving into some of the Wayland stuff. Like we talked about Wayland earlier in the show. He's been digging into it. He's got a little challenge going on. So
is it
watch that
ready?
That's what he's figuring out.
He's about 10 days as of the recording. It'll probably be like 15 days by the time you get this. 10 days through a 30-day challenge. So you'll have a couple of weeks to get caught up on that and figure out in a couple of weeks whether or not Wayland is ready on Plasma.
So
is it? I don't know.
I don't either. Yeah, no. So good. I'm excited to hear the final turnout of this. I think it'll be good. There's something for everybody here.
There is. He's good stuff.
So, shout out to the Vashinator. I'll have a link in the show notes.
All right, last focus twice. Second focus. Are you ready? It's like it's like first breakfast, but it's second breakfast.
I like second breakfast. That's good.
I love second breakfast. Here we go. Another perennial question, right? We asked about the passwords thing. That comes up all the time. But the other thing that comes up all the time, especially over in Linux land, you don't really have much of a question in Windows because they're shipping with one. And Mac does, have one underneath. You don't really see it, but it does work. So the question is, do you need an antivirus on Linux? You have the careful netizens that say, no, just don't click on those shady-looking things and you'll never have to worry. But then you have the cautious netizens that'll say, well, yeah, because you never know. Some of those websites are getting real tricky these days, and when you click on something, all of a sudden JavaScript, boom, you got it. The thing that you were trying to avoid, you got it. Well, which is it? Do you need one or don't you? Dan, what do you think?
I think it depends.
Oh, okay. So you're in the. Of course, you're in the middle. Of course, you're in the middle. What does it depend on?
Well, so I do think it depends on the use. I think it depends on what you're like. So okay, so you're sharing some files potentially with some other people. You might want to be careful there. You might want to be scanning some of those, and you might not want to redistribute.
You trust my FLAC files and my video files just unequivocally. You're just like, Leo would never send me a virus. Ever. I'm just going to double click on this thing right now.
Yeah, well, and it might not affect my Linux machine, but if I'm sharing stuff with somebody that's got a Windows machine or a Mac maybe, and I'm serving up those files to other people, they might get that whammied. So I might want to scan those so that I don't redistribute that stuff.
More and more, though, we're seeing that there are more and more Linux Trojans. There are more and more Linux creepy crawlies.
Yep,
does that move the needle for you in either direction?
I feel like there's other ways to kind of watch out for some of that stuff, and hopefully you don't get them. I don't know, but I don't know is that antivirus malware stuff is necessarily a bad thing. At least as long as it's not impacting performance.
You're the kind of guy that turns off the meltdown and spectrum mitigations, huh?
I mean, a lot of those probably not gonna happen on my machine, right?
I love that. That is my favorite because, I kind of gave you a hard time a second ago, but I'm the same exact way. I am in the middle as well. I don't have a hard yes or no. I do think that if you are overly cautious, if you, especially dealing with sharing files, and I don't even add the caveat of 2 Windows or 2 Mac. Yeah. I think just in general, if you're sharing files that you are not positive of the origin of, like the what I was saying about my audio files and my video files, if I'm sharing those to Dan, I would be offended. If you scanned those, Dan, I'd be offended. But
sure you would.
But if I'm downloading executable files and then giving them to Dan, I would be offended if he didn't scan them throw it in Virus Total, man. Just make sure that I'm not shipping you a Trojan or something like that. Yeah. But for those folks that are ever cautious and just need something, you need a little technical aptitude. You can't be afraid of the command line if you want it to run like you would expect an antivirus to run, but this is Linux user space, man. We're going to offer you the free and open source one.
Yeah.
And the free and open source one is ClamAV. Born in 2002 at version 0.10 and authored by Thomas Kjom. Originally, it was going to be called Turtle AV. But Clam's not that slow. So ClamAV it was. SourceFire acquired it in 2007. Then Cisco acquired SourceFire in 2013. And the SourceFire Vulnerability Research Team, or SourceFire VRT, became Cisco Talos, one of the most respected research teams out there today. So, headed up by Cisco, one of the premier enterprise network solutions hardware vendors, you kind of got to give them a little credit for that. Mm-hmm. They are massive.
That is big.
And The price tag, kind of says as much. But
yeah.
but you gotta respect them for what they do. And Cisco Talos is, these are a group of folks that are figuring out the 0 days as they happen, same as Google Project Zero. I had like 2 other names in my head, and I can't remember them right now.
The Palo Alto, what is it, Unit 42 or something like that, right?
You saved me. So ClamAV, it has kind of a mixed history as far as how good it is. Back in 2011, it was picking up about 80% of whatever was thrown at it. At the end of last year, Splunk is a company that does monitoring, like and like digesting that, so that you can figure out what all that means, right? Like data is fine, but making sense of the data is more fine. Yeah. And that's what Splunk does. They did a test of ClamAV and found out it does about 60% of the threats thrown at it, but some of the largest grouping of malware that most people find because they're downloading email attachments and running them, ClamAV captures about 90% of Trojans.
Wow, that's a lot. That's good.
On the whole, ClamAV is actually a very good antivirus for a lot of the threats that you're going to be encountering on a day-to-day. But ClamAV actually had its 20th birthday back in May of 2022. So, happy birthday, ClamAV.
Happy birthday.
It's going to celebrate 21 in a couple of months, so cool. Clam is a little memory hungry. So if you're on one of those systems, you got like 4 gigs of RAM, and then Firefox, just opening Firefox is stressing your system, you know what? Just practice good netizenship. Don't be downloading random stuff unless you know exactly who it's from and exactly what it is. No email attachments. Honestly, no email attachments all the time is really just good advice.
Don't go opening those unless you really, really, really know and we're expecting it.
FedEx doesn't actually have a package for you, dude.
No.
They don't.
If they did, they drop it off.
Don't click on the PDF because it's not a PDF, man. And if it is a PDF, it's got Trojan in it. Don't click it. Just don't. But anyway, Clam does like to use up a lot of memory, anywhere between 1 and 3 gigs. It's got to load up the definition. It's got to load up the files that it's scanning. It's got to do a lot of brute forcing against those files. So, be aware that if you're running ClamAV on a schedule or whatever, make sure it's during a time when you're not being memory intensive, right? When you don't have 3 Vivaldi windows open with 30 tabs each, so that you have to use their newly added feature. What was the name of that feature?
I don't know, but it's funny that you mentioned this, Leo, because I recently ran my endless machine out of memory because I was trying to do too much, and it just
loaded up all of Wikipedia, didn't you?
I don't know what I did. I had a bunch of chat things going and browser windows, and it was like, oops, out of memory.
Got him.
And I was like,
got him.
All right, I guess I'm restarting now.
All right, so that machine probably not a good candidate for ClamAV during use. You likely when you close everything down, go to sleep for the night, leave the thing awake, and it'll do a scan overnight. Whatever. That's
not when I'm running it. Nope.
Right. Yeah. ClamAV at 5 p.m. Not so much.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing
it. Wasn't good.
So I mentioned at the top that you want ClamAV to kind of behave like Windows Defender or Nod 32 or I don't know. I'm really hesitant to say the name of like any antivirus because they've all shown themselves to be not amazing.
They've all had their moments, and
Right. So anyway, commercial antivirus offering, you want Clam to work that way. So you can do that. You can do on-access scanning, which is you double-click on a PDF and Clam scans it in the background before it loads it up.
Right.
Or you cat a file in the command line, and Clam will scan that before it drops that out into your terminal or whatever. So it uses a kernel API called FA Notify, and it'll monitor whatever directories you configure. You've got to configure them yourself. And this is what I meant about you got to be okay with being in the terminal, little term foo. And if you're okay with that, though, configuring that up, it's really not that difficult. I'll have a link in the show notes. It's about 4 commands, and you do have to edit a couple lines in a configuration file. But at that point, Clam behaves exactly as you would expect. If it finds something, it sticks it in a little quarantine, and if you decide that it's worth it to you to go investigate, you can do that. Otherwise, the file's gone.
It's gone. Yeah.
You can test it with the old normal ACAR, whatever that is, the little test virus thing.
Yeah.
You can check it out with that and see how it behaves. But yeah, I mean, I guess to the answer of, do you need one? Use an ad blocker.
Yeah.
Practice good netizenship, like not downloading rando things and believing that you have a FedEx package on your way when you know you don't have a FedEx package on the way. And you're not giving Nigerian princes money.
Yep.
Like those kinds of things, I think are going to be pretty good. But seriously, the ad blocker, probably the
most
important,
Leo. Content blocker. That's what
blocker.
That's what we're calling them these days.
Use a content blocker. You block Origin specifically if you're on Firefox.
Yeah,
it's so good. It's so good. I think you'd be okay without one, but if you fall on, and you have a lot of RAM, if you fall on the side of a cautious netizen, then ClamAV is a solid choice.
Yeah,
and you can make it behave like anything else out there.
All right, Leo, that brings us to next time. We've made it all the way down to the end of the document here.
Woo! I can't believe it.
So next time, we get the history of Endless OS. I mean, I think it'll end, but I don't know. We're going to find out.
It is going to be an 8-hour podcast because the podcast is going to be endless.
I know. The jokes will never end.
Oh,
I swear.
No. The jokes are endless too.
But I don't know. Leo's already been diving into it and has already got some history stuff lined up. So I know it's happening. I know it's happening in the background. Some of those early days are pretty interesting stuff. So I can't wait to turn it over to everyone.
Turns out you're going to be surprised, I think, just how old Endless is.
So in between shows, you can catch us on Twitter, Mastodon, Telegram, Matrix, Discord, whatever. And give us your suggestions on our subreddit even, and join the conversation. All the links and show notes on linuxuserspace.show. So Leo, where can everyone find you?
You can find me at Leo Chavez on Twitter and at Leo Chavez on Mastodon.social. Wait, yeah, something like yeah.
I get you.
That thing.
And I'm at KC2BEZ on Twitter and at KC2BEZ at Mastodon.social.
That's what I meant to say.
That's what he meant to say. Join us again in 2 weeks when we return to the Linux user space.
We'll see you then.
Got plasma on the Gecko rolling machine, and that's pretty fun. Seems to be good to check out the new stuff.
Yeah, I think I keep thinking, man. Maybe I need to go Fedora or OpenSUSE just to keep up with the fixes on Plasma, because I want 527, but I know there's gonna be fixes coming out, and if I'm on anything else, I guess besides Kubuntu with the PPA.
Well, if you wait until April, you'll end up with 527.
Okay, so the next, obviously, the next version of Ubuntu will have that. Oh, and Dave says he installed it on Neon, or installed Neon.
Right.
And is checking out 527. So now I'm curious,
that's another way to do it.
Dave, any showstoppers? yet. Because if it can do, man, seriously, if it can do mixed DPI,